LSU offense continues to struggle, but came away with the win over West Kentucky. Meanwhile, the Saints, they struggled inside the Superdome. And should there be a serious conversation about Kellen Moore that needs to be had? We're talking about that and so much more today on the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. And welcome, everyone, to a brand new edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. Appreciate you listening in, as always. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to us today. Just search Louisiana Lunch Hour wherever you are on social media, or better yet, over on the YouTube channel. We're recapping everything that happened over this past weekend, and needless to say, I think the two biggest headlines have to be regarding the LSU Tigers and the New Orleans Saints. And we're going to start off with LSU, because I think this may be one of the worst performances LSU has had in the history of the program. Because you won, yes, absolutely, that's a great thing. But 13-10 against Western Kentucky, and Western Kentucky's no slouch, 8-3, even after the loss over the weekend. But you did next to nothing. It felt like the old meme, Luigi wins by doing absolutely nothing. 13-10, you had 2 field goals, and the only touchdown you got was in the second quarter. Michael Van Buren didn't necessarily do a whole lot to write home about, with 202 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. So even with everything going on, you just wonder. You just wonder what is going on with this LSU team and why are they struggling so much on the offense. The defense has been the biggest highlight of this season, been the saving grace, because I feel like right now LSU's 7-4, they're guaranteed a bowl game, and I feel like more likely than not they're going to be 7-5 after this coming Saturday's matchup against Oklahoma. That said, I firmly believe that LSU is going to struggle if this offense does not improve in 2026, regardless of who is going to be the head coach. If it's Lane Kiffin, great. Awesome. We can have all the fun talking about that. Kenny Dillingham, Eli Drinkwitz, whoever it is, John Summerall, even if that's an option. I've been seeing so many people this is something that we'll be talking about, and hopefully we have more of an answer over the course of the next week. Because it feels like more likely than not, by the Sunday after LSU Oklahoma, and more importantly, after the Egg Bowl, 24 to 48 hours from then, we are going to know for sure whether or not we have a new head coach at LSU in Lane Kiffin, or if Lane Kiffin's going to Florida, and then you kind of have to go with the next best guy available, and then we kind of have to think, who's that guy? Because you've got to find somebody that I think more than anything is going to bring this offense into the 21st century again, because it's felt like this team went so far backwards over the course of the season. But the fact that you had only 13 points against Western Kentucky, again, no slouches in any means, but a game where you had only 328 yards, you outgained them, 328 yards to 152, but you only get 13 points. You only got 1 touchdown. Think about that. That's a massive problem. You had 2 turnovers, but you dominated in every aspect of the game because your defense performed extremely well. If this defense didn't perform well, this LSU team would probably have 4 or 5 wins, tops. It's the defense that's bailed them out 10 times out of 10. But whenever you look at this entire season, LSU they have not scored over 30 points. Outside of the Southeastern game. But even then, That's the one game you can say. An FCS team. You didn't score 30 points against Florida. You didn't score 30 points against La Tech. You didn't score 20. You didn't score 30 against South Carolina. Against Arkansas. You barely survived that one. But the Western Kentucky one is just damning. But it's also kind of funny because I had a wedding party on Friday night. And I was talking to one of the guests, and they mentioned that they were talking about the spread heading into that game. And I was like, I think it was 30-point spread. And I was like, listen, I'm always going to say if it's 3 or more touchdowns, you take the other team, take the dog on that one to cover. Because more often than not, it's going to pay off. And I said that with the La Tech game earlier this year, and lightning struck twice. It's not often, but if you did think that Western Kentucky was going to cover that spread, more power to you. It's great stuff to see. If you're a degenerate gambler like yours truly used to be. But now you've got the game against Oklahoma at 2:30 that nobody is going to care about. Like, the LSU fan base is so apathetic. They're just wanting to see who the next head coach is at this point. It's a lot like the Saints, where they're wanting to see what they can do with the new quarterback. It will segue to them now, because there's no doubt in my mind that's what everybody is wanting to complain about. Because Tyler Shaw did not look good at all in this performance. 243 yards, 1 interception. They couldn't score from the 1-yard line. It was like looking at LSU in 2020 with Miles Brennan running things. He only scored 1 touchdown all game, and there was just so much that went wrong in this game. Several turnovers. You got sacked 5 times, and all of those were absolutely just backbreakers. Kirk Cousins didn't have to really break a sweat when it comes right down to it, because you have 3 and out, great defense, a lot like LSU. The defense has been the highlight of this franchise this season. They've been able to keep them in ball games. 3 and out from the jump, 2 plays in, fumble by Alvin Kamara, who is really just, it was a botched, handoff. Tyler Shaw was credited with it, with the fumble, recovered by Alford. That's the second play for the Saints. Field goal. And then you have another guy that I think should be getting exit stage left by the time we get to 2026, and that is Blake Grupe, missing a 38-yard field goal. The man cannot make a field goal to save his life inside of the Superdome, and I don't understand it. If this were like Lambeau or Mile High, I'd be like, okay, I guess, but what are we doing where you cannot make a field goal from 30 yards out in a dome? Come on now. Then you had punt, touchdown, punt, interception by Kirk Cousins. That turned into a pick six. The one touchdown you had was a defensive pick six. Shout out to Reed. He got a really nice pick six out of it, but you couldn't do anything with that. Outside of that, field goal. Another missed field goal towards the end of the first half. This one was from 47 yards out. Still, if this were 10, 15 years ago, a 47-yard missed field goal, okay, but the game has elevated. Getting a good kicker is going to change this game. It's going to make it a lot more competitive. Then you had a turnover on downs after eating up 7 minutes of clock because you couldn't get it done from the 1 on a direct snap. And you go ahead and pass it from the 1-yard line. Think about this. How many times over the last 10 years have the Saints gone for it from the 1-yard line on 4th down? I genuinely am wondering if Kellen Moore has a brain cell to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and pass it. When his offense over in Philly was using the good old tush push. The Saints What are they best known for? The little Drew Brees hop. Drew Brees was in the commentary booth. I guarantee you, he was punching the air, be like, what are you doing? Not going for it and just doing the little hop over the line, getting the ball over the pylon, and you're good. Hardly anybody has been able to duplicate that. It's the most simple thing. And I think Drew Brees should be going down after this game and be like, hey, let me show you how to do this, because you need to if you want to get better. But I digress. Yeah, punt. Finally, Blake Grupe finally kicks a field goal in the fourth quarter. But again, it's relatively meaningless at this point. It means next to nothing because Atlanta scores a touchdown and then they get a 2-point conversion. Then it's punt, downs, punt, interception, and adios game, the red blouses, and that's not what you want to see. That's not what you want to see if you're a Saints fan. Losing at home against the Atlanta Falcons. I understand everybody wants this for the greater good, but I am not team, I want to lose every game. I want to get a number 1 draft pick to go get Fernando AI-generated quarterback Mendoza. I can't stand that guy. It's difficult for me to necessarily explain how much I don't want to get Fernando Mendoza. I saw an interview he did before the Cajuns game on Thursday night, which was interesting. Simply because it didn't feel like he was an actual human being. It feels like he is the first AI-generated robotic quarterback I've ever heard. All his stuff was very coach speak, very deliberately slow, the way he was talking about this, that, and the other. He's like, I'm super excited to be here. I'm like, dude, you sound like you are literally reading from a script. I don't need you to be that well polished. I just need you to be a baller. I need some dogs if I want to get to where I want to be. And at the end of the day, Kellen Moore needs to step up because I'm not inspired by the play calling. I am not inspired by this team. In fact, it's hard to be inspired by this team. Again, a 3:00 game in the Superdome is cursed in and of itself. But when you're losing against a heated rival at home to Kirk Cousins, a guy that's seems like his career's towards the end of its rope, Tyler Shutt's not panning out. Now you've got to kind of figure out, at this point, the tankathon is in fact showing right now the Saints are currently pegged as the number 3 overall pick, which is interesting. They're right above the New York Football Jets. That could change. Again, that could change before too long. As of right now, according to one of the mock drafters I follow, and that is Walter Football, he's mentioning at the number 3 pick, it be Spencer Fano, but also says Fernando Mendoza is going to be in that number 4 spot, which, again, if they get him, the Saints team is absolutely doomed for the next 10 years. They're just going to be the Cleveland Browns of the 2020s and 2030s because it is just going to be non-stop suffering because I can't trust a quarterback like that. That's just my humble opinion, and I feel like a lot of people are going to disagree with me. But if they draft Fernando Mendoza, I think Mickey Loomis needs to be excommunicated from Airline Drive. I don't care. That's just how I see it. But that'll about do it for today's edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. A very long weekend, very fruitful weekend. And honestly, just looking forward to a great Thanksgiving weekend. Will I have some stuff to be thankful about in the world of sports this week? You have to listen in to find out. Until then, talk to you later. And make sure you listen to the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast and subscribe if you haven't already.